All it really takes is one person to screw up a name. And in south-central Ohio, that's kind of exactly what happened to what was an upstanding family of Hitlers. As far back as the 1700s, the Hitler family has resided in southern Ohio, and they were, for all intents and purposes, an upstanding family. Now, those with a keen eye might realize that I'm not actually in the Hitler-Ludwig cemetery, and that's because I'm in my family cemetery, the Bin Ladens. And let me tell you, being Mason Bin Laden in the early 2000s, high school wasn't a great time, but I can at least empathize with the Hitlers of southern Ohio who had their name messed up by one guy. That's obviously a joke. I'm not Mason Bin Laden. Not anymore, at least. I wasn't about to do any A-roll or voiceover in the Hitler-Ludwig cemetery because, well, it's a cemetery, and someone was being buried there. In fact, right after I left, the entire procession went by me, so didn't want to be rude and interrupt what they were having in that solace moment. But the Hitler-Ludwig cemetery is located in Circleville Township in southern Ohio, and it's on the south side of Hitler Road 1 and intersects with Hitler Road 2. It was started as a family cemetery in 1867 by the Hitler and Ludwig families, and the cemetery honors the early settlers George and Susanna Hitler, with graves dating back to 1810, they having settled here in the 1700s. George Hitler, born May 15, 1763 in Maryland, married Susanna Gay in Pennsylvania before they moved to the Pickaway Township of Ohio in 1799. George and Susanna arrived in Ohio with their 4 children, John, Catherine, Jacob, and George, and then had 7 more children after arriving here, Peter, Abraham, Elizabeth, Sarah, Susanna, Mary, and Joseph. That is, a lot of Hitlers. They were among the first pioneers to arrive in Pickaway Township in the late 1700s, and they settled in the area before Ohio was even a state. The Hitler children married into prominent local families, and their descendants remain in this county. George and Jacob Hitler manufactured their wheat into flour and shipped it down the river to New Orleans, making them wealthy through their business enterprises. And Nelson Hitler, born in 1833, was the son of Jacob and Sarah Gauger Hitler. He owned 2,000 acres around Pickaway, Circleville, and Washington townships, and lived his life as a well-to-do bachelor. Nelson Hitler would donate $12,000 to build the chapel at the Hitler-Ludwig Cemetery, as well as $3,000 to establish the cemetery and in a trust to keep care for it in perpetuity. He also donated $5,000 for a school library at the Pickaway Township School, with the residual of his estate going to the Township Board of Education in order to be invested for the purchase of books and the upkeep of the library, which still benefits from his bequest. A total of 18 Hitlers are buried in the Hitler-Ludwig Cemetery. There is, of course, an abrupt end to the name Hitler being carved into stones here sometime around the 1940s, and that's because the Hitler name mostly died out either through force or by choice. And according to local historians, the Hitlers were fine, upstanding citizens who were farmers with good reputations and could not have known that the burden of their surname would put on their descendants. Dr. Gay Hitler, who was the son of George Washington Hitler, he was a local dentist who served the Circleville community from the 1920s through 1946, at which point his office on West Main Street ended abruptly. It is believed that Dr. Gay Hitler left the county and his practice just after World War II, changing his name in the process. Now, the Hitler family descendants argue that their Hitler name came first, and that theirs is the only family of true Hitlers in the world, noting that Adolf's father was born Alois Schicklgruber, and later changed his surname. In fact, they have a lot of great points to be made, because Adolf was not really a true Hitler at all. In fact, it was more of a clerical error, and that his father wanted to be a Heidler. Adolf's father, Alois Hitler, was born out of wedlock as Alois Schicklgruber, and his mother later married Johann George Heidler, after whose name Alois tried to change his surname to in the late 1800s. According to lore, A clerical error changed Heidler to Hitler, and Alois Schicklgruber, wanting to be Heidler, became Alois Hitler. So unfortunately for the good Hitlers of Ohio, their name was ruined by a guy who didn't even really deserve the name to begin with. Never mind deserve to mess it up like he did. The local townspeople here have kept the names of the streets and the names of the cemetery because, as they've said, the Hitlers were good people. The Hitlers of Ohio, at least, were genuinely good people, took care of their community and their families, and established this cemetery, chapel, and did a lot of good in the southern Ohio area, and honestly, I don't blame them for not changing it. It's just unfortunate that that one particular guy went and screwed it all up for everybody. Thanks for watching. I've got a lot of other videos about cemeteries that you might find interesting. In fact, I might need to make a whole playlist just about cemeteries, but feel free to watch some of those others. Otherwise, thanks. Appreciate it. Catch you in the next one.